Hello everyone, it's Keira and welcome back to my channel. Now, all the way back in January, I think it was, I started a new series on my channel called Drivers and Dads, and I went into depth of 3 driver pairings that we have had in Formula 1 who are sons and fathers. Took a look into their relationship, how they were on track, how they were off track, and things like that. Now, this is a very long overdue part 2. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do it, I wasn't sure which ones to do, but I have now finally found my 3 next son and father pairings, and I am going to be talking you through them today. Before I get into the video, if you do enjoy it, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel down below, but I think we should just get into the first pairing. So first off, we have got the Rosbergs in Keke Rosberg and Nico Rosberg. They are only one of 2 driver pairings who are both world champions alongside the Hills, who I actually covered in part 1. That'll be linked down below if you do want to check that out after this. But let's talk about the Rosbergs. Keke Rosberg is currently 72, but when he was in Formula 1, that was all the way back in 1978 to 1986. His championship came in 1982 with Williams. However, he raced for a whole load of other teams. We have got here Theodore, ATS, Wolf, Fittipaldi and McLaren. So in that time, he really moved around a lot. Despite his championship, he actually only won 5 out of the 114 races that he started. And I think he is seen as a driver which had his ups and he really had his downs. Unlike his son, well, kind of like his son, Nico Rosberg. Nico Rosberg is currently 36, and in 2005 he won GP2, which warranted his move up to F1 in 2006, which was a year before his soon-to-be championship rival, Lewis Hamilton. He joined in 2006 with Williams and stayed in Formula 1 all the way up to 2016 when he won his championship with Mercedes, and then dipped out a couple of days after his championship, which we all remember as probably the biggest shock in Formula 1. Like, it was crazy. Nico was a really strong driver, and I think out of the 2, he was definitely the more dominant driver out of him and his dad. But let's have a little look into their relationship and see how they were together. Nico has come out to say that it's been really beneficial for him to have his father figure as also a racer, and it really helped him in his kind of teenage years to get up into racing and to learn what to do. Keke was a father who expected a lot from Nico, but at the same time supported him, and I think that's quite key here, is he expected a lot from him and he wanted to make sure that he was really performing, but he also supported him in doing so. Nico said that the harder he worked and the better results he got, the more affection he would get from Keke. So it was almost like it was a gift or a prize for doing well. He would get more affection, they would do more things with each other, and they would have more of a bond. But I don't know what would happen if he didn't do too well at the weekend, how Keke would be. When Nico came up into being a teenager, Keke really gave him room, obviously, as he was developing into a man, and Nico said this really helped him to enable to actually become a man that he is today. He had to learn from his own mistakes, he had to learn from his own experiences, and I think that's really great, because I think a lot of dads could either completely neglect their son or they could completely wrap them in cotton. But in this situation, I feel like, and you can actually tell, I think Nico is a very strong man, and I feel like you can tell that he had that life experience early on. From looking at their relationship from this point, it looks like they had a really good and balanced relationship. I feel like Keke was hard on him, as he should be, in the sense of pushing him, but he was never too hard. Nico never came out and said, I was pushed so hard, like I think the likes of Verstappen with Jos and Max could have been. I remember hearing Jos would push Max out of the truck and make him walk home, or Sophie would have to come and pick him up. But I feel like with this relationship, they had a good one, they had a solid one. Keke understood, and he was there with Nico, but also pushed Nico to be his own entity, and I think that's really important. So I think this is probably one of the favourite pairings I've looked at. They just look really good and calm together, and I think you can see that nowadays. I've not seen them together for a while now, probably since Nico was actually in Formula 1 when, Keke had a reason to come to the track, but I think that their relationship just looks good. It looks really healthy. So for me, I really like them, and I'm actually really impressed with that, because you never know how it could be, but they are very good together. Our next driver and dad pairing is Jan and Kevin Magnussen. Now, this is probably one that's the most interesting to me, because they actually have such a smaller age gap than most of the other ones. They only have 20 years difference. So you get quite a different dynamic in the relationship, because obviously Jan was at a different stage in his motorsport career when Kevin was born, and when Kevin was coming up in karting, Jan was doing other things. So it was really great to see the different dynamic of the situation. Jan is now 48, and he drove in 1995 in Formula 1 and then came back for 97 to 98. In Formula 1, he'd done 25 starts for McLaren and Stewart, but actually only achieved 1 career point, which I didn't know. I knew he wasn't like one of the best drivers, but I didn't realise he had 1 career point. Coming up with the junior ranks, as this happens a lot, he was described as the next big thing. He was described as the next Senna, but nothing came to be, and unfortunately his career really wasn't that long, and he actually got replaced by Jos Verstappen, who was in part 1 at Stewart for the 1999 season, and that left him out of Formula 1 and he never returned. But let's move on now to Kevin Magnussen, his son, who is currently 28. He ran in Formula 1 from 2014 all the way up to 2020, so really not that long ago. He ran for McLaren, Renault and Haas, and we all remember Kevin Magnussen, but if you don't, give you a little backstory. In his 119 starts, he had 1 career podium and he scored 158 career points, and unfortunately for Kevin, he really was a wrong place, wrong time driver, and he really, I feel like if he was just given a little bit more time at McLaren, or if he was able to get himself in a different place, he would have had such a successful career, because he is a very strong driver, and he was one of my favourites actually going in, you know, the last couple of years. He really was one of my faves, and he's a very good driver. But how was their relationship? Now, similar to the Rosbergs, Kevin actually said that Jan's experience in motorsport really helped him in his early days coming up in Formula 1. Obviously, it's new in Formula 1, he had a hard time coming in, but his dad's experience and, you know, probably him in his ear really helped him to get through that and stay in Formula 1 for as long as he did. He said as he worked his way up the ladder, there was extra pressure with the name, which I guess there is, but at the same time, it's not like his dad was, you know, amazing. Sorry, Jan. But he said there was a lot of added pressure, but there was a lot of bonuses to it too. People looked at him a little bit more because they recognised the name, they recognised the Magnussen bit, and they were paying him more attention. So Kevin was able to utilise that and go forward with it, and, you know, eventually make it up to Formula 1. Now, I've seen Jan around the paddock with Kevin when he was in Formula 1, and they honestly just look like brothers. Like, their relationship looks really good, and I think that comes with the 20-year age gap and the fact that Jan is still racing. I feel like a lot of the time we see the fathers where, you know, they're in their 50s, they're in their 60s even, and they've finished their racing, they've been finished racing for a good like 20 years, 20, 30 years, and they are just the dad on the sidelines, whereas Jan is still really into motorsport. He's still racing. Kevin is still racing. Therefore, I feel like there's just a different approach to it, and they just look much more like bros and brothers, and obviously they can still help each other day in, day out with, you know, motorsport tactics and all of the knowledge that they might be gaining from different things. Now, after this has probably been something that people have wanted for years, Jan and Kevin finally partnered up in Le Mans 24 hours to race together. I don't think people necessarily wanted Le Mans, they just wanted to see these guys race together, and they finally done it this year in LMP2 with high class racing, and it was so good to see. Like, finally we had the Magnussens racing in one team together, and again that comes back to the fact that they are quite similar in age. Not similar, it's 20 years, but it's not like it's the bigger gaps we normally see, and it's just great to see them racing together. They came 29th in their class at Le Mans, and I really hope that they can do it again next year. I think Jan might have said he may not, you know, have a chance again, but hopefully now they've done that, they'll want to do it again. Hopefully they can do it again next year, because I want to watch it again. And our final dad and driver pairing today is Gilles and Jacques Villeneuve. Okay, they are, you know, probably one of the most famous dad and driver pairings of all time, so of course I had to talk about them. They had to get in one of my parts, and let's delve into their relationship. Gilles raced in Formula 1 from 1977 to 1982 with McLaren and Ferrari. He got 6 wins and 13 podiums and is seen as one of the greatest drivers, but actually never got a championship. But he was a very good driver, very strong. But he tragically lost his life in Belgium when he was only 32. Jacques Villeneuve is now 50 and raced in Formula 1 between 1996 and 2006, so not too long ago. He raced with Williams, BAR, Sauber, BMW Sauber, also Renault, and achieved his championship in 1997. He has a very successful record with 11 wins, 23 podiums, and 235 career points to his name. He is a very controversial driver, probably more so for what he does nowadays, but all in all, he was a very successful driver. There's nothing you can take away from that. Now, this is really interesting because Jacques was only 11 when Gilles died, and he said the tragic loss of his father actually made him into a better man. And I think when you first look at that, you think, oh, like, you took on as the man, but there was no, like, feeling towards it. And I was like, maybe because he was young, maybe, like, he can't remember his dad. But actually looking into it a little bit more, Gilles was never there. Gilles was never around. He left months on end and he'd come back and he wouldn't even see the family. I think he would see his daughters more than he would see his son. He just wasn't interested. Apparently he would come back to play with his boat more than he would see the family. I feel like his parents may have been split, but kind of not split because of the children, so he just went off and done his thing. Their mum stayed at home and the kids just had no relationship with their father. I think Jacques said that the last 2 years before his death, he like didn't see his father. Like, he could hardly remember him, and I guess that kind of helps in the sense of when he died, you didn't feel as much pain because you were detached from him. And I think that's why Jacques can speak so differently about his father. And I think when you first look at a headline, you think, oh, where's the empathy? Where's the emotion? But there's hardly any, because, you know, he was so young and he didn't have any relationship with his father like that. Jacques actually still speaks really highly of his dad and says that he was his hero, and I think he can look back at his dad's records and think, wow, he done that, I want to emulate that, and he did. And I think that he kind of looked at his dad in the way of like, oh, that was my dad, but at the same time I didn't know him personally. In a way, I kind of know what he's done, but we never had that relationship. And I guess that helps Jacques in a way, because he's able to be like, that's my dad, I can go and, you know, emulate that. But there aren't really any emotions attached. Obviously he probably does feel emotion from it, and he probably wishes that his dad was still alive now and that they could actually have this relationship. But Jacques had to step up at a really young age and be the man of the family, and I think that kind of grew him to become the man that he was, and he was able to be that kind of punchy man and that guy that wasn't afraid and isn't afraid to say or do anything. And maybe that comes from this, but he always speaks highly of his father, and it would be really interesting to have seen how their relationship is now and how it would have been, whether Gilles would have still been a father which is distant, maybe whether when he, you know, grew older and Jacques grew older, they would have kind of become closer again. We just don't know how that relationship would have gone. But it is really nice to hear that Jacques will speak highly of his dad, and, you know, nothing was ever sour, and he's proud of his dad, and he's also proud of his own achievements, which he really should be. So there we have it. That is it for today's video, and those are 3 driver and dad pairings from Formula 1. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel down below, and let me know what you thought about the driver and dad pairings, and let me know in the comment section below if there are any other ones you want me to do for part 3, because I know that there are so many more driver and dad pairings. Again, don't forget to check out part 1 if you haven't already. It was back in January, and I know I've got a lot of newcomers since then, so do go and check that out, because I probably have covered some of the ones that you are looking for me to cover already. But yeah, thanks again for watching this video, and I will see you again soon. Bye.